Well, there's a new government report shedding light on fentanyl in the United States and pointing the finger squarely at Mexico as ground zero for the deadly drug, saying, quote, the dominant source of illegally sourced fentanyl has been Mexico. The drug is manufactured in illegal laboratories there using precursors from Asia, mainly China, and is trafficked principally by land into the United States. Here to talk about this is Vivek Ramaswamy, author of the book Woke Incorporated, and it's good to have you. I did think this was very interesting. The Drug Enforcement Agency head, Ann Milgram, she is an appointed person by Joe Biden. She had this to say about the role of social media companies in this. I want to get your take on it after you hear her.
The social media companies, they know exactly what the drug traffickers are doing. They know exactly what is happening. They track every single piece of data. When it came to child exploitation, they put an end to that on their sites. They could do the exact same thing here if they choose to do so. And we have not seen them willing to take those steps.
Vivek, I felt that this was sort of right up your alley because you talk about how social media companies take responsibility for a lot of things. Is this one of them?
Look, I actually think that this is the government deflecting accountability for the government's responsibility, because actually the border is the responsibility of the government. And one of the things you see from the Democratic Party that consistently disappoints me is conflating the issue of immigration with border security. Those are two different issues. And here with the fentanyl crisis, we're actually seeing the effects of that firsthand. But they've failed at the border. Fentanyl is now flowing into the country. It's actually the leading cause of death amongst adults under the age of 45 relative to COVID. It's actually even a greater cause of death. And yet we are not talking about that issue, instead deflecting accountability to social media companies. So I actually think the issue is slightly different, Dana. It's the fact that they're actually using this as another lever to exercise governmental control over social media companies, continuing to apply pressure to them, as I think they've done on matters relating to hate speech and misinformation. Now they're using the border security crisis as a smokescreen to pressure these companies to become instruments of government. That's a whole separate issue.
Interesting take.
But the issue at hand right here is the government's own failure to control its borders, one of the top functions of the federal government.
We know Snapchat's a big problem in this. The company that says they cut it in half over the past couple of months. We hope that's the case, but again, they're in the spotlight there. Open Secrets reports about the Beijing Olympic sponsors. You talk about this in your first book, Woke Inc. Talk about they spent $270 million in lobbying over the last 10 years. And we're talking about big companies here. On screen, call for three: Coca-Cola, Toyota, Intel, Visa, Samsung. That's a lot of money, Vivek.
It is, and it's a lot of money from companies that are lobbying here in the United States and abroad, that regularly critique social issues here in the United States, get involved in politics here in the United States, but have not said a peep about the actual human rights atrocities playing out in China as we speak, as they effectively subsidize the reputation of a brutal CCP regime that's responsible for some of the greatest human rights atrocities of our moment. So I think the corporations can either take the road of saying that, you know what, we're going to sell rope to whoever buys rope, and we're going to let them hang us by that rope later because our job is to be a corporation and government actors should be government actors. Or they can get involved in politics here in the United States, but they have to actually apply a consistent standard when they engage in business abroad as well. But they can't have it both ways, because right now what they're doing is bolstering the reputation of the CCP while quietly undermining the moral standing of the United States, offering left-wing criticism of U.S. policies and U.S. realities here at home. So I think that these corporations, we need to see through that veil of behavior. I think that ultimately China is actually benefiting from their actions.
Sounds like it. Are you watching the Olympics at all, Vivek?
You know, I was conflicted about it. I actually enjoy watching the Olympics every year. I haven't this year. My wife and I actually had a conversation about it, and we felt like this wasn't a year to do it. I think it's inappropriate that the U.S. didn't engage in a diplomatic boycott this year. I personally think it's 1936 Berlin all over again. And we're going to look back at this moment and really regret the fact that we ultimately underwrote the reputation of the CCP. And I love our athletes and I stand behind them. I love watching excellence on display every 4 years on the global stage. But this is an exceptional moment where every company and every institutional actor around the world is looking the other way with respect to those human rights atrocities. This is the greatest threat to open societies around the world as we know it, the CCP regime is. And I think we need to be careful not to bolster them.
Something stronger than the diplomatic boycott, indeed. All right, thank you.
See, if the TV ratings keep going the way they are, maybe these companies think twice next time around. Maybe. Vivek, thank you.